Allegheny County Conservation District presents manure spreader calibration using the TARP method, presented by Jeff Leindecker. Introduction. Manure spreader calibration is an essential and valuable nutrient management tool for maximizing the efficient use of available manure nutrients. Calibrating the manure spreader is the only way to know the actual manure application rates. We held a calibration field day in the spring. This is what the field looked like after spreading solid beef manure. Can you guess how many tons of manure were spread per acre? We'll reveal the answer at the end of the presentation. For this calibration method today, we will refer to Agronomy Fact 68. This is a Penn State publication available from your conservation district as well as your local extension office or on the internet. There are two calibration methods covered in Agronomy Fact 68, the swath method and the TARP method. Today we'll cover the TARP method. For this calibration method, you will require the following items: a tarp or a heavy plastic sheet, 6 foot by 6 foot, tent pegs or long nails to hold the tarp down flat against the ground, a scale. A milk scale works good, but you could also use a platform or a spring tension scale, and a bucket or something to hold the manure in. And this is optional but highly recommended. Agronomy Fact Sheet 68 includes a record sheet. Use this sheet to record the tarp surface area and manure weights. So first we will measure the tarp, and these are where the tent stakes would be good. If you follow the cursor here, we used clumps of soil, and it was kind of windy, and we were able to differentiate the soil from the manure and take that out, but stakes would be a heck of a lot easier. So we're going to measure the tarp area and record it in line 1A of the calibration record sheet. In this case, we measured 6 foot by 6 foot. We took a 6 by 8 tarp and just folded the flap over to make 6 by 6. Next, we'll capture the tear weight by weighing the empty bucket or plastic sheet, weighing the tarp or plastic sheet with the bucket. Record the weight in pounds on line 3A of the calibration record sheet. In our example, the weight was 3.2 pounds, so that is the tarp plus the bucket. And the reason you do this is because it's virtually impossible to scrape all that manure off of the tarp and then get it into a bucket onto a scale. So you just weigh the tarp weight and you just subtract that out later, and we'll show you how to do that. When you position the tarp in the field, you want to position it where manure can be spread. It needs to be placed far enough into the field to allow enough distance to get the spreader in gear and the tractor up to speed. You want to avoid placing the tarp at the beginning or the end of the load, where the beginning or the end of the load is likely to fall. Secure each corner of the tarp with a tent peg or long nail. And it's kind of hard to see. There it is. We put our tarp off the edge. The farmer had enough room to get started and get a true, accurate representation. When you begin spreading, the first pass of manure goes directly over the center of the tarp. Operate the spreader at a speed normally driven when applying manure. The details are important. We want to note the details of the operating conditions, things like tractor gear, throttle settings, speed, spreader settings, etc. This is all important to replicate this and be consistent with these settings. There will be 2 additional passes over the tarp, and these will go on opposite sides of the center of the tarp. And again, you'll apply these passes at the normal spreader overlap spacing and the same speed as you did before. Depending on your size of your spreader, you might not get a whole lot on this pass, but it is important to get that true overlap, to get a true representation of how the manure is applied in a field setting. Next, we'll remove and fold the tarp. And this was a heavy tarp here, very difficult to get in the bucket. And we really had to be careful not to spill any of that manure off. It was just kind of trying to squeeze out the sides there. And we jam it into the bucket, and we get a weight of 36.2 pounds. So we weighed the tarp, the bucket, and the manure. And in our case, 2 of us held it on a soil sampling probe and had somebody else read it. So there are better ways probably to do this that we'll talk about later. And you'll record the gross weight in line 3B on the calibration record sheet. Subtract line 3A from 3B to give you the actual weight of collected manure. So you're going to take this weight of all of this, and you're going to subtract the weight of just the tarp in the bucket. So to determine the application rate, we're going to take the manure collected, that was the weight of the manure on the tarp minus the weight of the tarp and bucket themselves. You're going to divide that by the tarp area. In our case, that was 6 foot by 6 foot. And we have an example of this with all these lines 3 and 3A, 3B, 3C. We'll get to that here in a couple of slides. And the multiplication factor is 21.8. So once you have your, you divide your manure collected by the tarp area, multiply by 21.8, and that's your conversion factor, and that gives you tons per acre. You're going to record the manure application rate in tons per acre when using the tarp method. If you're using gallons per acre, you're probably going to be using the swath method, which is not covered here, but we can, Allegheny County Conservation District or any of the other conservation districts can assist you with that. You're going to repeat the calibration procedure. We prefer 2 more times. The repetition is necessary to increase the reliability of the application rate. Calculate the average of each of the measured manure application rates. Record the final calibrated rate in tons per acre. Here's our calculation example, lines 3 and 4. Our empty weight was 3.2 pounds. That's the tarp plus the bucket. With the manure, it was 36.2 pounds for a net weight of 33 pounds. Our tarp was 6 by 6, so that was 36 square feet. You can't see 1A on here, but 3C is 33 divided by 1A. 1A is at 36 square feet. And this is very clear on the actual fact sheet. So when you do the math, multiply by your 21.8 application rate factor. Application rate came out to be 20 tons to the acre. It was 20.06 or something like that, but we're just going to report it in nice whole numbers. So please just round to the nearest number. Some things that we would do different to do this again. Folding the 6 by 8 tarp to make it 6 by 6 created this extra flap that was difficult to contend with at times. I would just cut that 2 foot off, and to be quite honest, you probably want to give the tarp back to the farmer, or if it's his tarp, if it's not his tarp, he can dispose of it. It's going to be covered in manure and mud, and Unless you want to take it home and spend a half an hour hosing it down like I did, it's probably not worth keeping. And the 6x6 tarp is, we couldn't find any at the local hardware stores. And if you try and go with like a 10x10 or a 12x12 tarp, it just makes it too difficult to fold all that up. So based on some recommendations, we came up with 6x6, and that was recommended by the State Conservation Commission. Some other things we did different. It was difficult to get that. You saw Bill Clouser and I rolling that tarp up and jamming it into that bucket there. And that was difficult. I'd use a larger tub, or if you wanted, you could use a platform scale and stand on it. And you just, you measure, you hop on it with the bucket and the tarp, and then you hop on it again after you collect the manure and you subtract. The only difference is you have your weight in addition to all that, which it'll all work out the same. If you use a platform scale, you want to have a flat surface. In conclusion, the manure spreader calibration, it maximizes your nutrient use. It will save you money. The only way to know the true application rate is by calibrating your spreader in a method such as this. And it is relatively easy and inexpensive to do. So this was our finished product, and we asked you to guess how many tons per acre after we did 3 replications. The farmer thought he was putting out 5 tons per acre, and we had guesses of anywhere between 5 and 20 tons, and the actual weight was 17 tons to the acre. So that drastically changes his farming methods and stretches his manure a lot further than he used to take it, and it's going to cut down on the amount of fertilizer he has to buy. For more information on this topic, please visit our website at www.accdpa.org. If you are outside of Allegheny County, please visit pacd.org for a list of conservation districts. Or visit the nutrient management website at extension.psu.edu/plants/nutrient-management.